Hello. Okay, so as I understand, my name is Sikstāns, and I work for Draugiem Group. And a little in Draugiem Groups today, I'm going to talk about several business ideas we actually worked at Draugiem Group that helped us to lead us to most successful and the largest startup today at Draugiem Group we have. And before I talk about these ideas, I'll briefly about myself. I've been at Draugiem Group for about 7 years right now. I did go to school here at the University of Latvia, and I did spend a year abroad at the University of Wisconsin in an exchange program, which actually worked really well because later on I mostly worked at Draugiem Group for projects that deal with the United States. So that experience came out handy. Got some contacts in the North American Latvian community. We ended up hiring several American, Canadian, and even Australian Latvians by end of it. And I started as an IT administrator, then worked on to become a project manager, and now spend almost every day managing exclusively Printful. And that's sort of typical of Draugiem Group because we rarely hire management outside the company. Most of the managers in the company actually started at Draugiem, then worked their way up. And that's the way it works also for us in the United States. So the first project I actually want to talk about is the project we launched in 2010. It's called Friendly Bracelets. Since then, it has been branched out of the group. And at 2010, we already had like Draugiem LV, which is a successful multi-million-dollar business. But our philosophy at group is always to keep launching new projects. We take the puck against the goal, and like 1 in 10 projects usually work and become a success. With this project, our goal was actually to launch something for the US market. And so it happened that the sort of core market for these friendly bracelets was actually the United States. It's a sort of a silly project, you know, when you have multi-million-dollar businesses already, but we learned a lot. For example, how to market to US people. One of the things we noticed that it's important actually to rank really well for certain keywords. And the keyword we wanted to rank for is friendship bracelets. We did a bunch of SEO techniques, but none of us could get on the first result. So we did the next best thing. We actually got in touch with the website owner of this friendship bracelets net. And turns out it was a sort of a pet project of the guy. He didn't make a lot of money, and we actually arranged advertisement on the first page. And it was very cheap, and we still get a lot of money for it. And to sum it up, it was sort of our first US project. We learned back then how important is SEO. Choosing the keywords you want to rank for, trying to get on the first page, and doing whatever it needs. And one thing also we learned a little hard lesson is that back then we used a Latvian-based Latvian payments processing company called First Data. And the problem is that because most of the customers for this project was in the United States, we saw a lot of unsuccessful transactions. I would spend times on phone with customers in US, and they said like, it's not me, it's you guys, you know, my credit card data is right, but the payment would just not go through. So we got fed up with First Data and actually switched to Braintree, which is a US-based payments company. And since then, the decline rate went down. And I think, you know, our sales jumped by 30% just because we switched to payment processing company. And what you will actually see that if you have a US registered company, and because Braintree right now actually works with Latvian companies as well, but if you have a US registered company, you will have a higher successful transaction rate. So it pays to use a good payment processing company. Also, but the end game is that the niche was just too small for us. Like, the most we did with friendly bracelets was about $10,000 per month with this bracelets project. You know, it was not too interesting for us to continue that, so we branched it out to the guy the lady actually who made these bracelets in Latvia. But it was our first custom products startup. So the next project we kind of worked on, website is not down, so I actually had to retrieve from the archives. Was a pre-texting app called King SMS. We launched it about the same time in 2010. Users could actually send free messages between the app users, but the business was there. If they wanted to send a message to a user who didn't have the King SMS app, they would have to pay for SMS because we had the technology in Latvia there. You can through Draugiem.lv, was a sort of a SMS texting company. You can send text all over the world. Even though we launched at the same time, around the same time that WhatsApp did, which later sold for $19 billion to Facebook, we didn't actually reach anything significant, and I think most of the facts was because we didn't have a focus, because a lot of employees who actually worked on this project worked on many other projects in Draugiem Group. And also team dynamic issues. You really have to pick people who you work with, because at the time I actually worked with my cousin, who's a company. We knew each other since we were small kids, and me managing him just didn't work out. So since then we actually don't work together anymore. Another thing we didn't have any kind of other apps other than iOS, and like WhatsApp had back then already Nokia, Android apps, etc. And because of that, we actually homebrew Android developers. And next things we launched, we also want to do an Android. And also we learned about the same thing related to SEO. Even though we called it SMS messages in Latvia and US, they would call it text messaging. So our core market didn't pick up what SMS actually meant. Another project we worked on and still active is called STime. It's a time tracking application for businesses that actually lets you track time for companies and employees. You can monitor what the kind of apps they use. It was our first software as a service business. But one thing we learned is that it's really important to embrace the concept of minimum viable product, or MVP. Because we spent about 9 months in development in this project, and by the time we launched, we already had to rebuild major parts of the product, because the things we thought our users would like, they would not use, or like our app just didn't survive the first contact with the users. So the lesson there is launch as fast as possible. And all the next projects we even launched before we even had anything major to show. It's still a moderately successful business. It's profitable, but the big issue it suffers from a big brother stigma, which we have with monitoring. It's a PR success. In this project, we learned a lot about how to invent news, because at the time we already had the content marketing team, and we looked at the data that STime users used, and we figured out which employees are the most productive. And actually, the research said if you work for 52 minutes and then take a break for 17 minutes, you would be the most productive. So we invented our kind of news and pitched some blogs. None of the big blogs initially picked it up, but one of the blogs called Daily Muse picked it up. And turns out that blog was read by other big articles. And then they republished it on Washington Post, Forbes magazine, Mashable, and then Business Insider. And we already were the published authors by then. They had the links to the Draugiem Group, and at STime itself, it sort of legitimized us and our content marketing team. And we're trying to use the same technique over and over again. Sort of even though if you don't have big news, you're looking for what's unique in your project or your company, and try to make the news and pitch some of the guys. And in the meantime, we also had another project called Sports Snaps. And the idea was that you go on these sports events like the Riga Marathon, and there are a lot of people taking photos on the side, like for their personal use. And there's no marketplace that would connect each other, because if they upload those photos are not uploaded on any kind of central site. The idea was that people would upload these photos on a site and they would sell them. We would have an army of people tagging the images by the athlete's number, and then you can buy it. We arranged a couple of events already in Latvia and Estonia and even I think in England, but the math and mathematics just didn't check out. It was too much work for our representatives to arrange an event, and tagging numbers required armies of people. And we looked at the conversion rate of people who actually would buy those photos was really low. So we just shut the project down because we would not make any kind of sufficient money out of it. Then we had a project called Bemean, because we noticed that memes are really popular on the internet, and you can buy them on any kind of the products. So since we're already by then into print products, we would offer them for sale. So we built a generator where you can generate these quotes and buy on t-shirts. But we quickly run into issues such as legality of printing memes, because if you see a lot of memes on the internet, they would have characters from movies and Disney, so that was one of the issues. We also ran some ads and emailed our mailing lists, but there was just not enough sales. So the same problem as Sportsnet, the conversion was just too low. But we still are experimenting in print product space and launching projects like this regularly. Then we, actually earlier we had a project called BeHappy.me. This was also about quotes, and the idea came about because we saw a lot of inspirational quotes on the internet. These sites would actually make money through advertising, but you couldn't buy these quotes on any kind of the products. Luckily, most of the quotes are not copyrighted, so we could actually print them. Early on in the project, we understood that we couldn't actually get all the quotes in the internet on our website. So we actually asked our users to submit quotes and use our generator, which actually resulted in lots of content. I think right now there's about 500,000 different quotes on BeHappy.me. And actually that resulted in good ranking on Google and about 170,000 unique users per month visiting the website. But the more content actually doesn't mean that you will have a lot of people buying it, because the people who generated these quotes didn't have maybe a sense of taste, and the conversion was really low, even though the website visitor rate was really high. So we also learned that having all the quotes on the internet is just too general. You don't have your own unique niche. So the next quotes project, we already went for a niche that we ourselves needed. We moved about 4 years ago to a new office in Meetup, and we needed some new office supplies, like something we could put on the walls. All the walls were blank. So we figured we can design posters that we would ourselves like and other companies would like too. Actually, these posters you can see, I guess upstairs in TechHub. And this worked really well for us because on the time, actually, if you looked at business posters on the internet, most of the stuff looked really bad. So there was a need for a quality content. And the difference from BeHappy was that we designed our own quotes, which resulted in a quality, which even though we would have, 10 times less the users visiting the site, we would have 10 times more revenue on startup items, and we still do. And we learned a lot about marketing in this project, so it was not enough just to put the project out there and hope people would visit the website. We actually invested to publish ourselves in the sites where startup people hang out. So in US, it is Hacker News, which is a great startup resource, and we put our link there, and we received about 34,000 unique visitors in months. Reddit, I'm sure you know that site, we posted there as well. People liked it, came to our website and bought stuff. Quora, which is answers and questions website. Dribble and Behance, which is designer communities. They appreciated good design and actually bought a lot of stuff. And paid advertising. We seriously invested in Facebook advertising, and in a month we did, at most we did about $15,000 per month just on Facebook advertising with a positive return in investment. And we mostly actually got that positive return by using lookalike audiences, which is a technique you can use in Facebook advertising where they would actually look what kind of users are visiting your website, and they would, using their own proprietary algorithms, they would generate a similar audience to your website visitors, or you can even say, please generate an audience that's similar to people who buy on my website. And we just marketed our ads to those kind of people, and they actually bought. And also we used retargeting, which is these ads when you visit the website once, and then these ads follow you around the web for some time. So these ads are actually also worked really well for us. We spent about $10,000 on retargeting, but we got about $100,000 worth of revenue back from these ads. So this is sort of where we posted on Quora, looking for relevant questions about our business. Dribble, which is free, you can just post there. And actually by the end of it, the project got so popular that we even had a book. It's still available on Amazon, and I haven't even seen it in some bookstores in Latvia. But we mostly sold this in US, and The way it came about was actually Penguin Books, the publisher, just got in touch with us and they said, we will do all the work, just give us the content. And so we just received some royalties from this book. And the Startup Vitamins was actually so popular that it helped us to be known in the startup community, so that by the time we launched Printful, we would be able to get on TechCrunch, because as you see, it even says from the Startup Vitamins team. So idea for Printful actually came out, again, we had our own need, our problem was be happy in Startup Vitamins. We just had the poster printers, but we wanted to expand in the t-shirt printing business. But any kind of good t-shirt printer costs about $20,000, so we didn't want to buy a t-shirt printer immediately, so we looked for people we can outsource t-shirt printing to. So we just looked for dropshipping t-shirts. In 2013, we found some companies who would do it for us, but they didn't have an API. So we actually had to have somebody on our team who would manually input all the orders from Startup Vitamins or Be Happy into their own backend. So it took a long time. There was some errors, a human error when they just copy and paste some addresses. And also this dropshipping company, they would take about 7 to 10 business days to ship a t-shirt. So we naturally thought there needs to be a better way, and we launched Printful. The whole idea is mine. Okay, let's put an API to it, so there's no manual work. It's going to be more reliable, and also invest in fulfillment, so we don't have to send a t-shirt in 7 to 10 days, but actually close to 3, which is what we currently do. So these are kind of the products we print at Printful. It's not only t-shirts, even though it's the biggest part of our business, is we do posters and other print products. And the whole idea is actually, our client base is startups like Be Happy and Startup Vitamins. We would print t-shirts and other stuff for these online e-commerce stores, white label. We would print, pack it, and ship it, and the customers of those stores would actually not know that Printful did it. One of the key things, again, with Printful, it was not just enough to put the website out there, market to Startup Vitamins users, even though it was a good launch hit. We actually had to have a strategy how we're going to gain more users. And one of the key things was actually partnerships. And looking for partnerships where you can have a win-win situation. And for us at Printful, it turns out to be the e-commerce platforms, because e-commerce platforms have people who want to sell something online, but not necessarily they want to do all the printing and packing and inventory, all that themselves. So we partner with Shopify, which is our key partner. They would actually benefit from having Printful on their app store, because their users are actually looking for a solution where they can easily start selling t-shirts online. And for all these platforms, I think I personally met most of the key team members of all these people. Sometimes it took a year to negotiate, actually to be available there in the App Store, like in Ticktail, which is a Swedish startup. I think I spoke with them about a year and a half in emails until we got our app there. But by the end of it, it actually paid off, because most of the users we have on Printful is actually through these platforms. And they actually do the marketing for us. So also when we launch new platforms like Big Cartel, which is something we launched most recently, we would coordinate the marketing efforts. We would push notification to all our Printful users. In turn, they would do the same on their end. And it's a win-win for both of us. In the Shopify case, they have a really successful blog. And actually, if you would Google how to start an online t-shirt business, this article would come up the first. And I'm actually mentioning this because they had a video in it that teach how to do that on Shopify. And from all the competitors we had on Shopify platform, Shopify would actually choose Printful to highlight them in that video. So that worked really well for us too, to have that close relationship. And we also invested heavily in having good videos, good copywriting on a site, because we ask people after they make their first order, like, why did they go with Printful? And many people say it's the copy. And we did it with actually hiring native speakers. I see a lot of Latvian startups would have a great product, but maybe they often overlook the marketing of it. They overlook having good copy on a site. You can read the website and you can see it's from Eastern Europe. It actually pays to invest money and maybe hire or do a contract work with somebody who can write good copy on a website, and it will actually increase the conversion rate, increase the sales. So to sum it up, it helps if you launch a project or startup that actually solves your own problem. So we solved our own problem by launching Printful because we had a problem for Be Happy and Startup Vitamins. Partnerships. If your business can do that, they would actually do the marketing for you and you would grow naturally. Great copy on a site is something we really invest in, because right now we have 2 Canadian Latvians, we have one Australian Latvian team actively working on this every day to have a great copy, great marketing that is geared towards our key markets, which is US. And we also invested in quality control and decreasing fulfillment time, which I said about that other startup we used, which would send about 7 days on average. Right now we send a t-shirt out for about 3 days on average. So this is our team in Los Angeles. We shot this picture in September. In December we actually peaked about 100 people. There's some Latvians working there managing the team, but mostly Americans. This is also a little dated picture. This is team in Latvia. We have about 19 people currently in Latvia. Some customer service, some design, marketing, as I said, but mostly developers. This is sort of how it looks in US. A lot of printers. It's just a big warehouse. T-shirt printing. This is like, about 2,000 shirts at a time would actually arrive at our facility any day. And we have about 20,000 shirts in any given time in our facility ready to be printed. And that's how it looks from outside. This is sort of our growth. We've been doubling our revenue every year or so. Pretty much every year, 283%. Got about $8.5 million in revenue. And we want to continue doing that. We want to do that again next year, reach about $15 million. And it's nothing unrealistic, because if you actually look at the US, there's t-shirt companies like Custom Ink, which the revenue is about $300 million. So you can actually build a big business around t-shirts. And for that we need really strong team, which I'm going to tell you about because we're hiring, obviously. But what's next? We're going to continue to embrace the philosophy of Draugen Group, which we have, is continue to launch new businesses, to continue to hit the goal, puck against the goalie, and maybe one of those businesses will work. So we're actually developing on the top of Printful concept, because one of the issues with Printful is that in order to start selling t-shirts online, you would have to integrate with Shopify or WooCommerce, etc. And that's a friction point. That's kind of a problem for a lot of users who want to start selling something online easily. So we're launching a business called Inktail, which will have a print products marketplace, but will have an integrated e-commerce in it. We'll have the Printful pricing, which is less than most of other print products marketplaces out there. We'll have an automatic mock-up generator. The images how it's going to look on the t-shirt is going to generate automatically, and hopefully it's going to be a success. We don't know if it's going to be a success, but if it's going to fail, that's okay too, because that's sort of our philosophy at Draugen Group. We continue to launch new businesses. Maybe it's going to work, maybe it's not going to. We will see. So we're looking, sort of shameless plug, we're looking for developers, and that's plural because we're looking for about, to increase our team by 4. We're looking both front-end, back-end developers, full-stack developers. And there's some interesting challenges we actually work on at Printful. One of the things is how you actually connect to a Windows-based printer from a Unix-based server, because obviously all the servers are on Linux, but most of the printers actually work with Windows. And you work on things how you actually calculate worker productivity and predict how much employees you will need 6 months from now, or even you have seasonal times like December and November. And that actually requires developers to make regular trips to US to work on these problems. So we offer any kind of hardware, software you want, Mac or Windows, all the benefits of Draugen Group, such as paid lunches, etc. If you work for Printful, you get to go to Los Angeles. That's sort of our almost requirement. Some developers like doing it, some don't, but we really encourage people to go out there. And competitive salary and hopefully an interesting tasks you can work on. So if you want to join, actually please go and visit the website. It will actually have more info about it, what kind of technologies we exactly use, etc. But you can also just email Darbs at the Printful with your CV and we'll get in touch with you. Thank you.